and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, hello and welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast live on this Family Day Monday night after the Flames lose to another non-playoff team, 4-3 to the Flyers. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network live. And it's, cold times in Calgary, literally and figuratively. And, of course, Sean in Calgary. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm all right. I've kind of giggled about all this like doom and gloom talk out of Flames land when I'm sitting here as a Canucks fan watching the tank happen.
Yeah. It's panic. It's
the panic buttons have been smashed.
Yeah,
they're broken,
completely smashed. I think they rebuilt I think it's like the Staples do it. They broke it, rebuilt it, panicked it again. Dan, how are you?
I was better before this Flyers game. I think the big difference, Sean, is we all expected Calgary to be contenders this year. We didn't necessarily expect that from Vancouver.
Yeah, I think that both teams have underachieved to the same extent, but the expectations, the expectations were like the Flames, were supposed to be like up at the top, and now they're sort of middling. The Canucks were supposed to be middling, and now they're tanking.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the Canucks in the playoffs. I thought the Flames would get off to a slow start, and I didn't have them winning the division. So, as I brush my hands out of all of this, but I think.
But hold on, Kev. Before we get into it, how are you? I feel like we always miss asking how are you, because you always ask everyone else. So, how are you doing there, Kevin?
I'm good. It's been a nice quiet weekend. Got to see watch the Ant-Man and the Wasp, watched the Elimination Chamber, watched a bit of hockey, had a couple of naps. It was a good long weekend.
Sounds like you've had a good weekend sitting on your ass.
I've been working a lot, so I guess I deserve a little bit of a nice long weekend. And
I agree.
One of the other things that before we get into the Flames, we'll get into the Flames, we'll get into the Canucks, we'll get into the Ryan O'Reilly trade and what is going to happen in the Atlantic Division and all of that. There was something that happened this weekend that did not get a lot of attention that I wanted to put some attention to. And it was in Ottawa, when on Friday, Chris Neal's number 25 was retired. And you may not be a Senators fan, and you may not think that Chris Neal is a guy worthy of having his number 25 up in the rafters. And the Ottawa Senator fan will tell you you're wrong. His stats are not the greatest, of course, but he spent his entire career with the Ottawa Senators. He was a sixth-round pick back in, as I pulled it, sorry, I had this up, then I crossed it out. He back in 1998, and he played 1,026 games, all with the Ottawa Senators, 112 goals, 138 assists, 250 points. Absolutely loved in and out of the community of Ottawa. It's he was a personality on the ice. He was part of the, and because I saw this word on Twitter today in terms of Flamesland, so it's apropos. He was part of the culture of the Ottawa Senators. Was part of that 2007 team that got to the Stanley Cup final. And these are the type of guys. This is Chris Neil is a part of hockey that I think is sadly going away. These type of players are not going to be around as much anymore. And it's not that it's so much that he was a penalty box fisticuff guy. That's part of it. But it's the type of guy that, not the super talented guy, not the guy that you're, when we're talking about asset management and who we should trade and who we should draft and how you should build a team, Chris Neil will not be part of the future. Those type of players, I think, unfortunately, are not going to be part of the future. But this is a guy that gave his heart and his soul to the community of Ottawa. And that is so rare in sports community that I want to make sure that you go and see it, because the Ottawa Senator fans absolutely loved him. The jersey retirement was well worthy. It was a great ceremony, and it was a lot of fun. And I know that the Ottawa Senators don't get a lot of attention, but I take the time to find that and watch the Chris Neil retirement ceremony, because this is a guy, he is a dime a dozen, or not a dime a dozen, the exact opposite. He's going to be a rarity, unfortunately, in where hockey is going. But because we want to trade guys at their highest value, and we want draft picks, and we are either in buy mode now or sell mode now. We're not in caution mode now anymore. We're in one of the two. And I think that this is where we're going to squeeze out Chris Neil's. So I want to make sure that you get to watch. Make sure you watch that.
Chris Neil's one of the heart and soul player who just got the emotions and the raw emotions of the fans. I guess it comes down to what you want as your how you want to celebrate the players, whether it's jersey retirements or number retirements or whatever. If he was a Canuck, he'd be in the Ring of Honor, because I think that's I think that would be a perfect spot for him. If the Sens had that would be a perfect spot for him, in my opinion. I think jersey retirements and number retirements should be done for just the cream of the cream, the ones who just absolutely changed the franchise. And as much as everything you said there, Kevin, is true, just for me, he's not quite there yet. But guess what? I'm not a Sens fan. I'm not someone who made that decision, and I'm not going to shit on that, because I think it's to every franchise and every fan base to figure that out on their own.
I agree.
You look at Stan Smith with the Canucks. I don't think if you were to take the way people look at jersey retirements now, I think he'd likely be more of a Ring of Honor type player, but that doesn't matter. He's up there now because he meant so much to the team, to the market, to the fan base in the 80s for the Canucks. And Chris Neil in the 2000s, that's what he means to that franchise.
Yeah. Dan, did you have anything to add?
I think you summed it up well. I think every team has its heart and soul guys. I mean, I look at, while he didn't play for the Calgary Flames as long as Neil did in Ottawa, I look at him like a Craig Conroy in Calgary. And, that heart and soul guy, the guy that everybody still likes, the guy that's still around the organization. And the Flames are fortunate to have a lot of those kind of guys that still kick around, still work in the community. And from what I understand, people I know in Ottawa, Chris Neil's always been visible, whether it's on the ice or off the ice, as a proud Senator. And, you've got to reward those people. I don't know. I've always been one that sort of criticized the Forever Flame program here in Calgary, but I think that there is a differentiation there. And I think that, in Ottawa, maybe his jersey should be retired, but I think that every team maybe does need two different levels of player honors.
Well, I think part of it is just finding ways to celebrate the players regardless of if they're jersey retirement or not type players. You look at what the Canucks did with Kevin Bieksa, just gave him a night.
Yeah.
You need to do that.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that's been my issue here in Calgary. I think that a lot of the guys in the Forever Flame program deserve to have a jersey retired. But I totally agree with you, Sean. Having a night or having some sort of celebration or, with an outdoor game coming, celebrating those guys as part of an alumni team or something like that, I think are all very useful depending on who you're trying to celebrate.
And there's guys and there's players in franchises that are not ever going to be. I mean, you talked about Stan Smeal and Sean and Dan. You talked about Craig Conroy, but there's these guys that
they mean something to that market, but not to everybody.
Yeah, but and yeah, exactly. Like I'm thinking of one guy that I don't know. I still don't understand. One guy I always believe that should be in the Hall of Fame, and there's got to be a way for him to get into the Hall of Fame. As an example, is Joey Moss. Like I think there has to be a way for Joey Moss to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Like he absolutely contributed. He is a huge contributor to the Oilers culture. Didn't play a single game, but he's part of the identity of what the Oilers were in the 80s and the 90s. He's part of the fabric of that organization, and he should be honored as such. So.
But I think in that case, you can honor him within because he means something to that market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part. Like, I think, Joey Moss is a specific Edmonton Oilers thing, and like it's so good, and he means so much to that market. I think there would be let's put it. What was that girl's name for St. Louis during their run? That was huge.
Yeah.
The only way I could see maybe getting Joey Moss in the Hall of Fame is if they were doing something where they were celebrating the Oilers from a certain period, and he's part of that individual exhibit for that period of time. But I think when we look at professional hockey as a whole, I don't know Joey Moss is a big enough part of that story to be a full-time member of the Hall of Fame.
Fair. I'm trying to remember. I'll remember. I remember that it was Gloria was the song, but I think every team has those type of guys or those type of people that are just special to their team and unique to their team.
Laura Branigan was her name.
No, that's the singer's name.
That's the singer. Yeah, that's right. That's who sang Gloria.
I'll
look it up while you vamp.
Yeah, but I think everybody has some of those, and I think it's important to understand that in part of history, and that's where I just think right now where we're at in the analyzing the game. I was just thinking, the Chris Neil types are getting squeezed out, unfortunately, with the way things are going, and I think that's really sad.
Even right now with the way, with the cap, as soon as like a fourth liner gets their payday, they start to become a target for the fans who would just look so much at the cap to whether or not they.
As soon as you hit $1 million, you become expendable.
Yeah.
And Kevin, as much as what you're saying about Neil is true, I think we've seen different types of players over the years come and go. And I think it shows the game changing and maturing and evolving. I don't know that player will never come back, but I think over the years, there's been various different types of players that we've seen, and then they've gone. And it's just, you see it in baseball, you see it in football, you see it in every sport.
Layla Anderson was her name.
You were close. Laura Branigan is close. to Layla Anderson.
I mean, there's
Like,
an
in
L
terms
in
of
both
names.
of them.
Yes, and
And they both have two names.
yeah, and they have "in" at the end. So you were pretty good there. Anyway, to get to the Flames, it's been a very dramatic week with a very I guess I guess we have to go back to go forward here because it was a very frustrating game today against the Philadelphia Flyers, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And I think as we get into this conversation, I think we saw the strengths and the weaknesses of the Flames this weekend in two different games, and I'll delve into that. But I guess we start with Allan Walsh. Allan Walsh, after the Detroit game, the Flames lose 5-2 to Detroit. It's at the end after a very huge tough loss to Ottawa. You lose to Detroit, who beat the Oilers quite badly the night before. And then Allan Walsh tweets and out at the Flames that it's not fun anymore, or the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not fun anymore. Leads to a press conference with Daryl Sutter asked about it, and he says social media has nothing to do with our locker room. Jonathan Huberdeau says they had no idea about this tweet from Allan Walsh. The team gets there's a lot of emotion that comes out of this. They play a hell of a game against the New York Rangers, probably one of their best of the year, even though they did blow a 2-0 lead. They came away with the win in overtime. And then today, back to same old Flames in a lot of ways. They can't capitalize on a power play opportunity. Their several defensive lapses today, and they can't score when they need to, and lose 4-3 to an unknown goaltender and a non-playoff team. So I guess let's start with the tweet. Where do we go here in terms of this tweet? How do we unpack the Allan Walsh tweet? Is it Brad Treleaven's fault? I'm just saying that so Devin will run in.
Sean, do you want to give your thoughts on this first?
It's Allan Walsh being Allan Walsh. The guy is not afraid to say whatever comes into his mind on Twitter. I think there might be some truth to the square peg round hole with the amount of times Lucic was on the Kadri Huberdeau line for a little bit there, but I don't think players pay too much attention to social media. And if it was Huberdeau's agent, but it's not Huberdeau saying it. I think it's just I think it's a much ado about nothing. I think it's just Allan Walsh being Allan Walsh.
Yeah, I get where Allan Walsh is coming from, saying that, they're not having fun, but at the same time, if you're losing, it shouldn't be fun. Like, I don't think, and how many of us go to work every day and the first thing we say is when we come in, we're hoping to have fun today. Like, we're going to do our job. If you can have fun while you're doing it, great. But there seems to be this thing in pro sports. We're always saying, well, we're hoping they're having fun. It's a job like any other, and you've got to do your job and you've got to find a way to win. If you're winning, you'll have fun. Just like if you work in a company that's successful, you'll have more fun than a company that's, on the verge of bankruptcy. So I think I think the fun is up to the players. We can't make it fun if you're sucking. This is not our 10-year-old, community soccer team where everyone's just playing to have fun. I also wonder how much of this is Allan Walsh trying to divert attention. I think that in some ways it could be Allan Walsh trying to sort of throw up a smoke signal and say, let me divert some attention over here away from the Flames. I don't know. But my other thing about this too is if his guy, if Huberdeau was still on pace for 115 points and carrying this team on his back, I could see that. But you know what, Allan Walsh, keep your mouth shut when your guy's underperforming. It's not like Huberdeau's, on his 115 or 120 or 130 point clip and everyone else is underperforming. Then I can see that tweet coming out. But your guy is not the rose here.
Yeah, and I think that that's where part of this for me is coming from is Huberto has not even been remotely close to good enough, and I don't know why that is. I don't know what the if it's because of his line mates, if it's just part of Lucic. I don't know if I don't, is it because he's not playing with the players he wanted us to play with? Is it the system? Is it Daryl? All I know is today when I watched him, I thought I saw 2 or 3 very soft plays from him. That like one, he had an opportunity late in the second to tie to at least get it to 3-2. Pelche shoots, it's a rebound, and I very little effort to tap that in. That's a tap in. If that was Matthew Tkachuk, that's a tap. He walks to the net and taps it in. And I'm not complaining. I'm not saying, we miss Matthew Tkachuk, and I'm not crying about that. But my point is I don't think that Jonathan Huberdeau has been as hard on pucks, as hard of a player to play against as I think advertised. I think that that's been one of the biggest disappointments. And I will also, while I'm at it, just going to add, I just wondered, have we overrated Mackenzie Weegar? He is either, I mean, we were having a little private, before the podcast here, we were having a chat about wrestling. Mackenzie Weegar had a wrestling match with the puck today on more than one occasion. You look back on that Wade on the winning goal, someone whapped him on the, he had the puck. First of all, he had the puck. He was fighting it and backing into Markstrom, which almost cost a goal. Then you had Wade out. Someone bumped him at the blue line, and he showed no interest in retaliating back. I don't know. I feel like
to me, though, we're not seeing that from him every game, and I think everybody has a couple bad games.
I haven't. I got to be honest with you. I haven't seen a completely good game from him yet this year.
But what flame have you?
From defensively?
Yeah.
I think Anderson has stepped up. I think Hanifin has stepped up.
So 2 of 6. Like, it's not like
that's fair. I mean, Tanev is Tanev.
But I'm just saying it's not like he's the only guy.
No, I'm not saying but this is my point. There's a number of guys on this team that haven't shown and made a consistent effort enough this year. And they are not, the Flames are not they're not a hard team to play against. And
so going back to what you're saying about Huberdeau, and maybe he's not getting who he wants to play with and stuff. To me, if you're getting paid $10 million, you find a way to play with whoever we give you. Like, you might not like them, but you know what? I don't get to pick all my colleagues at work either. Like, I'm paying you $10 million to come in and do your thing, and you need to find a way to adapt to whoever we give you for that kind of money.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are signs, but I just don't think he's hard enough on the puck. Like, I actually would argue, I was thinking about this, and this may be bold for me to say, I think that Johnny is harder on the puck than Jonathan Huberdeau. I think Johnny was harder to take off the puck than Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah, I can see that.
But and that's probably a harsh criticism for some, but I just find him it's too easy. It's just too easy to me.
So I guess then the question becomes, what do you do about it? Right? I mean, I don't think this coach is going anywhere, as much as I think maybe it's time to move on. He's got a 2-year deal coming up. They're not going to let him walk away with two years worth of cash. You can't move Huberdeau's deals. So what do you do?
Well, they got to figure it out.
I mean, I'm sure that Daryl's told him, be harder on the puck. Like, if that's not working, shock therapy is, I don't think, allowed under the collective bargaining agreement. Like, what do? And I think this is my frustration as a Flames fan. Every game we look at it and we say, what do we do? And you hear the players, as you always do, well, we got to be better. Well, we got to do this. Well, then do it. Like, it's, at some point it's becoming lip service. Like, at what point do we have to say, how do we fix it?
I don't know. Which is not a good answer.
You're not taking him out of the lineup at this point.
No, you're not. But I don't know. maybe we're overreacting in some ways, but and I don't know, but it's just I feel like Huberdeau has to find his footing in some ways, however that is, right? Whether that's and he has to find that within his own motivation. That can't be us, right? That can't be he has to have his own motivation to get to where he needs to go.
But I think we can say that about a lot of guys in this team. He's got to find his own motivation. I would say Mangiapane needs to find a better motivation. Like you were saying, Uyghur. Let's talk about the goalie. This is just a team of underperforming guys this year.
Yep.
I would say the two biggest issues on the Flames right now is the fact that they went from having Vezina quality goaltending last year to basically league average. You look at the league average save percentage is .905. The Flames are just below that combined, the two goalies. And the league average goals against average is .295, and they're above that. So they have slightly below league average goaltending right now, and as opposed to Vezina quality that they had with Markstrom last year, and then they've got a bottom third power play.
Yeah, their power play is an issue.
You fix one of those, and they're probably battling for the division.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's that to me. I think it's keep it simple when you're trying to analyze the Flames right now. Yeah, you can nitpick based off of what you're gonna with some of these players and all that, but power play and goaltending, I think it's that simple.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of other things that go into it too, but I think power play, goaltending, I would say lack of discipline. We're seeing them spending far too much time in the box. We're seeing them making dumb plays in their own end. I think there's a between the ears issue this year. As my dad would say, the issue's between your ears.
Yeah, Kadri. I mean, if the Flames lose to the Rangers on Saturday, how much of a conversation are we having about Kadri's 10-minute misconduct? And Sutter didn't let him off the hook on that. He basically said Kadri deserved it, and he took a bad penalty today too. I don't think he's been. I can't sit here and say that Kadri has been an outstanding contributor either. So I think ultimately, this team has to take ownership and figure out what they want to do from themselves. And, I think to jump a little bit ahead here just for a second. The amazing thing is yes, they're not in a playoff spot. And, as much as everybody's talking about sell, or some are talking about sell. Is there truly a team in the West right now that frightens you in any way, shape, or form that says look out for them? Honestly, I the West is wide open for the taking. If the Flames, Sean's right. If the Flames fix even one of these two issues, power play or goaltending, they can get themselves back into this race pretty quickly. I mean,
but at the same time, why do we think they're going to solve that now, this late in the season?
I think the best option with that would be the goaltending, and they just somehow they're able to get to Markstrom specifically, figure out why he's letting in soft goals, why he's reverted to 2016 to 2018, 2019 Markstrom when he was with the Canucks, because he turned himself around into a very good, got rid of all that for one season with the Canucks, then 1 to 2 seasons with the Flames, and now has gone back to it.
But I feel like if you were going to solve that, Sean, you would have done it, or if you could solve it, it would have been done before game 57. I mean, unless they're going to bring Dr. Phil in or something to analyze this guy, I feel like it might be too little too late.
That is, and then with the power play, that might be personnel-ish. I think personnel, this might be a good way to transition into what they're going to do on the blue line going into the deadline. This is what this is what I would do. This is what I think the issue is. This is not what I think Sutter will do and Treliving will do, because I think they're going to dabble around the third pair guys again. I think the thing that the Flames are needing, especially on the power play, is someone who's a more natural puck mover, a more natural offensive defenseman. Rasmus Andersson isn't a natural, like, pure offensive defenseman. He's a good two-way guy, but he's not a natural at like that can control a power play and quarterback a power play. Hannafin's not that. Uyghur's not that. Like, they just don't have that, and that's, I think, that if you can find that could be a quote unquote easy button fix.
So what assets do you have to give up to get that?
You're gonna have to give up picks, and one of those young players. Looking at Zerier and Coronado at this point, because I don't think you're giving up Pelche, because he's proven to be a good NHL player who's going to grow from there. And unless they're going to be looking at acquiring a top six forward as well. But then again, as you said, are they just going to empty? Are they just going to empty the cupboards?
Well, and I think they did that last year. I mean, they gave up, crazy things for Yarncroke and guys like that who really didn't move the needle. And if this team is a middling team, like Kevin said, do we want to start giving up future assets if this might be a team that needs to transition into a rebuild or retool in a few years? Like, I don't know that's prudent in this year. I think if your team was number one, sure, you make those deals. I don't know that bringing in your puck-moving defenseman for all of your marbles at this stage in the game is really the best move to make.
Is it? But again, what's the? To me, I also look at what's the what coming from up high down to Treliving and all that. What are they wanting? Are they wanting a rebuild? Are they wanting some patience? Or with Treliving being on the last year of his contract, we're coming up to a trade deadline, and he doesn't have this could be his last trade deadline. Is he going to swing for the fences here?
I just don't know that everyone said 2023 is the year you don't want to give up picks. So I don't see them giving up this year's pick for things. I don't know that he's got the assets to swing those deals.
If there is a shrewd puck-moving defenseman out there, then I would tend to agree. Like one person I think there's been a lot of attention to Luke Shen, but I also would.
I think
He's not
Shen's
a
a
puck
bottom
mover.
pair guy.
Yeah, I know that people are talking about that, but Justin Braun is a bit of a puck mover guy. Maybe.
No, he's not.
Well, he's got he's got the Michael Stone shot.
Yeah, but that's what you don't want to be dabbling there. Like, that's what I'm saying is, if you're looking at someone who can, who they really should, like, when they made that Eric Gustafsson trade a couple seasons ago, that's the type of player you need to be looking at.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
That's where I'm not the Bronze, not the Shens, not the more guy. But I think that's what they're going to be looking at. But I don't think that's what they should be looking at.
John Klingberg comes to mind.
Bring back Public Enemy #1 from the Dallas series last year. Yes.
But I don't know that he's going to be affordable.
I mean,
let's just say that I think he might be on the market, but I don't know that Calgary is going to be able to competitively bid for him.
But I guess the other side of this argument, though, Dan, is like, if you're okay, like, I mean, we're not an Oilers podcast, but I think some are gonna, there's some in Oilers land are probably gonna want to go all in. I'm not sure if I'm the Oilers, I do that right now. I can't sit here and tell you if I'm a Vegas Golden Knight fan that I would sit here and think, yeah, this is a time to go all in or not. I'm not sure. Winnipeg, I look at the West and I see a number of inconsistent teams, and I do not see a serious contender in this.
Yeah,
and I include Colorado in this right now, actually.
The other side of that same coin, though, Kev, is if you see all that, why don't you try and add to your team so
one
that
up
you
everybody?
Can take advantage of that.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go as well. I mean, there is a name that popped up as a defenseman that is an interesting name. I don't know where I'm at with him, but St. Louis is in sell mode. It's an expensive contract. It's a very expensive contract, but is there an interest in Colton Parayko?
Again, he's not your true like puck mover defenseman. He's a good two-way guy. And he's basically just a top 4 version of Michael Stone.
My issue with Parayko right now is taking on long-term money. I think the Flames have a lot of long-term money coming on the books this season with Huberdeau's extension, Weegar's extension. I mean, he's got a big, long deal, and I don't know the Flames want a long deal right now. And they're trying to find a way to shed money.
That's fair. I'm just asking. That's
the other thing with the cap is like we were talking a little bit about how the cap might be going up, but with the news about Bally Sports, is that even going to be happening? Are we still looking at a stagnant cap going?
I think they've said it'll be $1 million for next year.
It is, yeah. For next year, it's going to be, but even like beyond that, right?
Yeah.
So I think again, this is why I see all these people screaming about the Flames to be sellers, and they don't have those typical like deadline selling pieces. Next year they will.
And I guess, my question of, and kind of going to both your articles, Sean's argument of, maybe this is the year to go all in because no one else in the West is. And Kevin's argument that everyone's kind of weak in the West. I think that you might look at this and say, well, is it worth paying money to bring in a not so ideal guy just to make a move? Or is it maybe the year to say, you know what, we'll ride it out with what we've got and we'll find that guy in the offseason?
Well, and let me just add to that. Like you look at some of these, last year, off season. Okay, the Flames made like they bring in Kadri, Huberdeau, Weegar. You look at the top teams right now.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't make a heck of a lot of moves. Like Boston, okay, other than changing a coach.
Yeah,
Vegas and Boston really didn't do much. I mean, Carolina. Yes,
neither
they
of them lost
200-point
guys either, though.
No, but this team is specifically actually the one team I want to point to is the Winnipeg Jets because I actually do see some parallel between this year's Flames team, and last year's Winnipeg Jets, where there was a lot of talent. They just couldn't have the cohesiveness to get it together. They had a Vezina Trophy type of goaltender that didn't have a Vezina Trophy type of year. They basically stood pat in the offseason. They didn't do anything. And people were wondering what the hell is going on in Winnipeg. They stripped the captaincy of Blake Wheeler. They bring in Rick Bowness. And, it's not perfect in Winnipeg, but they're in the playoffs. And they certainly, I think there's something to be said ultimately about holding hard if you can. Maybe this isn't your year. Maybe there was just too much that doesn't work, and maybe you come back next year and you become better for it. And the adversity of this year, and maybe comes the adversity of the bad taste in your mouth after this year, and the loss of the Oilers starts to build, and you come back more prepared in the off season. And next year, and you become a better team.
That's honestly where I sit right now, Kevin. I think this is the year to not do a whole lot of the trade deadline. And this is the year to say, you know what? The West is open. Let's try to make a run with what we've got. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we reanalyze in the offseason. So like you said, figure out what is wrong with our goalie, who we need to add, and make a more calculated set of moves in the offseason.
Next year, if you're not going all in or close to, if you're not making a big move this deadline, you better be making big moves in the offseason for the Flames, because next year is the last year that this group has together. When you look at Backlund's deal is done. Lindholm's going to need a new deal. Toffoli's deal is done. Mm-hmm. Dubé is going to need a new deal. Pelche is going to need a new deal. Ruzicka is going to need a new deal.
That's going to be expensive.
Hannafin's going to need a new deal. Tanev's contract is up. Zadorov's contract is
Next
up.
year, you either go big or you sell off everyone that's not bolted down.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
And I agree with you, Sean. I think, next year's the year they've got to do it, and maybe they've just got to maybe they've got to sort of save up for that one big run.
Well, and maybe that's why you don't look at the normal typical asset buy that happens at the deadline as a rental. You're looking more at someone who's got 2 years left this year and next.
Who?
That's the big question.
We're all sitting here trying to figure out who, right? Tree's probably doing the same thing as Office. So we need a puck moving defenseman. Who do we got?
Well, let me just throw one thing in here that I don't think he's getting enough talk. I don't know if he's getting enough talk specifically in Calgary, but the Calgary Wranglers have a chance to, I think, go on a pretty extended Calder Cup run. I don't know if
There's
they'll be
your strong
able to,
team in the West.
they are strong. And you've got a couple things going on there. You've got Dustin Wolf. You've also got, I think quietly Jerome Poirier is making some inroads. He's talking about a puck-moving defenseman. He certainly looks like a puck-moving defenseman. The one thing about buying right now is I think that you would ruin that Wranglers playoff opportunity, which I think that is, if anything comes out of this year, a good Wranglers playoff run, I think it helps you. I think might be the best thing to happen to this organization. Because
I'll be blunt here, Kev. It's not as big a deal as you're making it out to be.
No, hang on. Hear me out. Not for the fan base, but for this organization to start to see the development of some of these players, to see where Dustin Wolf is at. A long playoff run, I think, just gives experience. And for that coach that is not going anywhere, that wants playoff experience, he's going to have it in the back pocket with a long Calder Cup running. And he can say, it's not a Stanley Cup. And I know that and Daryl will always say the AHL is not the same as the NHL. Sure. But a long playoff run gives you experience. And
say that till his boy wins the Calder Trophy.
Yeah, then he'll be all happy about that. But that's that I think can help the development of the kids in the organization.
It can, but it's not going to help within these 2 years.
Well, it will, though, if you're in a position then all of a sudden that you have to, if you are in a decision next year and you're like, you know what, I need to sell, you've got something to build on. You're not necessarily you're not starting from the ground up. You've got something to build on.
I'm with Kevin on this one, Sean. I think that, if it was a matter of sacrificing one for the other, sure. If we thought the Flames could go all the way, let's sacrifice one for the other. I don't think the Flames go all the way this year. And I think having some of those young guys learn adversity at the AHL level, learning to win at that level, learning to be a champion is going to do nothing but help you when those guys do get called up, because now they have more of that experience. And that's a lot better than, bringing Phillips up to play on your fourth line.
Well, yeah, but I think that's fair. I just don't know if you're looking at these next 2 years, this year and next year as the window for this group, that playoff run doesn't help that much at all. If you're going to say screw this window and sell off in the off season, then yes, that would help. That would help.
I don't know if I agree with that, though. I think if you look at next,
I'll say this right now. With Daryl Sutter in the organization, they aren't selling off.
No, but I think even next year, if you're looking at plugging some of the holes in the roster, I think that if you have guys that went deep, it could help you next year to know, okay, now we have some guys that know adversity that we can put on a third and fourth line, that we can put on our bottom pair.
But I don't think that's the issue with this team.
No, but I think that they're going to need to get cheaper, and that's where you're going to be able to get cheaper.
Yeah, younger and cheaper and a little bit more energetic. That's where I think is where that could help. I'm not saying they become the saviors of the franchise. That's not what I'm saying, but I think inside this room, we've said this a few times, and I don't think we're the only ones that have said it. There's no competition in this roster. There's nobody competing for a spot.
There should be.
Of course,
But
there should
not be. There should be, but there's not because of who's coaching.
And I think actually in a lot of ways, I think he's been humbled this year. I think with the Pelche thing, I think he took a bit of a shit sandwich with how he handled the Jacob Pelche situation. I think the year ultimately, some of the things that he's been trying to implement and the way that he's wanting to play hockey, I think he's had to adjust. I think he's taken his lumps. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a humbler Sutter next year.
I still think he's going to be someone who's going to be put, like, he knows what he'll be humbler. He won't be as just Sutter, as sort of prickly with the media or just standoffish with the media. But I still think he's going to be the same guy within his approach.
Well, what if he doesn't have the option next year? What if you're the GM, whether it's Treliving or somebody else, and you say, these are the players I'm giving you to work with. You are being not given, Lewis and Richie. You're being given guys that were on the Wranglers. Put them on your roster. He's not going to ice an incomplete team.
So you're basically saying that, like, until Daryl plays ball, you're giving him 12 forwards and 6 defensemen.
Well, but I think we could all argue, okay, so Milan Lucic is gone at the end of the year. You could replace him with a guy from the Wranglers. I think Brett Ritchie could be replaced with a guy from the Wranglers, potentially Rajicka. So I'm not saying you give him an incomplete team, but you say, I'm not going to fill those with NHL veterans. Pick a guy from this list and we'll keep him here.
Yeah, if that GM has that sway. Because I think if we're going to talk about that, there is that sort of the rumblings behind, like, that Daryl's got more pull on what players come in than maybe say.
I don't know if he's got the pull, or if I think the GM's trying to give the coach what the coach wants, because you want your coach to be successful. And I think, again, maybe this year, if we look at this year as a learning year, we said, okay, doing it Daryl's way didn't quite work. And we know from when Daryl was GM here, it didn't work. So I think maybe ownership or John Bean or somebody needs to say, Daryl, you go back to coaching. Our GM will, put the right players in and let's figure it out. And I think, they were trying to appease their coach, which everybody tries to do. But at some point you've got to say, okay, that wasn't working. Here's the guys we're putting out there.
Yeah.
Maybe. I just look at it and I think Daryl, like, just the way Daryl's been, until a player, like, absolutely blows the wheels off and tells him, like, yeah, I'm ready, he's not going to he's going to downplay them, and this lack of competition is just going to continue to be the same thing.
But just to I'm defending Sutter here a little bit, but, like, look already how he's handled Pelche. I mean, Pelche's getting power play time now.
Power play's getting first line minutes.
So he can change. It just takes him a long time to get there. I think it, like,
So let him know in April that these are the guys we're giving him for September.
Yeah, dress them up as cows, okay, and have them at the yard, and they'll go around like I mean, he takes as long as a cow to move to evolve into a moment, into what we want, but he has gotten there.
He has.
So
I don't know. I just until he proves it otherwise, I'm gonna.
No, I get where you're coming from, Sean, and I've been frustrated by him too. But I think what Kevin's saying is true. He's giving Peltier a shot. Look at today's game. Gilbert played a bigger role. Like, I think we are seeing that guys who earn it are there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying don't put a guy in the lineup until they're ready. But I think the question is, ready by what metric? Especially if you're a top team, you don't want to put guys in your lineup till they're ready. But I think that Daryl's maybe metric of ready is different than a lot of other people's.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very apparent.
Yeah. So, I think, and maybe that's where, And again, maybe there needs to be more of a decision or a discussion happening in the offseason around expectation and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, even earlier this did he not say at the beginning of the year he wanted to play Vladar more?
Yep.
And he has.
Yep.
I mean,
He didn't
we could-
quantify.
Still not enough for people. There were a lot of fans, but
I mean, technically, if Vladar got one more period this year than last year, he's fulfilled his commitment of playing Vladar more, right? He didn't quantify what that looked like.
and we're also you talking about Dennis Gilbert, according to Natural Stat Trick, he played 11:36.
Yeah.
And was, which is almost like 6 minutes less than the fifth most of than Rasmus Anderson, who played the second least.
But
well,
I mean,
they
he
ended
was,
up with Anderson and Gilbert was a pair in the third period.
yeah, it was. He got a lot of time down the stretch when they were trying to, at key moments he was playing. It's not so much about how much he played. We saw him in the Buffalo game get 2 points, right? Like Daryl's brought him in and given him the ability to show what he's got. I don't think coming in this year, any of us thought Gilbert was much of anything, right? But I think he's been given the chance by Daryl to get the opportunity. And Daryl said it, when the opportunity arises, make the most of it. I think he just needs to give those opportunities more often.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I guess the other question that has come up here is and someone posted this on Twitter. I can't remember the name of him, but he suggested the idea of bringing Dustin Wolf up just for, I don't know if his thought was, and I'll have to find the tweet, but I don't know if it was a permanent decision to have Dustin Wolf be the starter or Dustin Wolf get a start. But we'll start with Dan here. What are you thinking here? What would you do with Dustin Wolf now?
Yeah, sure. If you think you're out of this, I mean, they're not going to be in a place where they're clinched, and I think every game matters. But because every game matters, I'm not sure I put Dustin Wolf in. But if you've either clinched a spot or you're out of it, sure, give him a game or two. But I don't think that bringing Dustin Wolf up as your starter solves any of these issues right now. And as you talked about earlier, I think there is benefit to keeping Wolf in the American League and letting him try to go on a bit of a playoff run. And I think you might hinder some of that development. Like, I've said this before on your show here. Great. We all want to see Dustin Wolf. Go down to the Dome to see him. You don't need to go to Stockton anymore. Like, if you want to see Wolf, go watch Wolf play. But I think that as fans, we think that Dustin Wolf is this, Superman in our net. He's looking great in the American League. I can list for you a dozen goalies that looked fantastic in the American League and didn't look good in the NHL. And I think goalies aren't guys you want to rush up. So sure, if you want to give him one game, if you're out of it, sure, let's bring him up for one game. That would be neat. But I don't think you say, well, we bring Dustin Wolf up now and he's going to take us to the playoffs with our three-headed monster. What are you going to do? Wave Markstrom to do that? Like, that's just silly.
I found the tweet. It was a Jacob Stoller. Should the Flames recall Dustin Wolf? You saw Vasilevsky in Syracuse, and you're like, wow. You saw Demko in Utica, and you're like, wow. Wolf gives you that, wow. NHL Western Conference scout.
I would say those two teams are very different than the Calgary Flames this year, though.
Yeah.
I say bring it if the situation is right, you bring him up for a game or two and go from there. But if the situation isn't right, yeah, you still got to run with the two you got.
You do not bring up Dustin Wolf. No, I'm sorry.
All right, well, Devin heard that we were talking about
Well,
Wolf.
That is the longest run-in. What? Okay, are you running? Like, where were you this time? Are you in Edmonton?
He can't run.
I was
broken.
just about to say, I can't fucking run, Kev. That's rude.
Oh, I forgot.
God.
Well, what do we do? Oh,
Walk quickly, Forrest.
It's a limp. That's all I got right now.
I'm sorry, dude.
I mean, sure, if you want to bring up Dustin Wolf for the game on April 12th against San Jose, the last game of the season, if you're already out of this one, sure, that would be a neat thing to do. But the Flames are not going to be out of it. I think they're going to be so, neck and neck that you got to solve your own goaltending problems before you look at another one.
Agreed.
It doesn't make sense for them to go away from it. If anything, you give Vladar more runway to not solidify himself, but obviously Jacob Markstrom isn't doing what he needs to do to make this team successful, and he's not making the saves. That first one today with Konechny, I thought he could have had that one. He was too far back in his net. There was, I think, the third one he could have had as well. It just doesn't seem like he is quite 100% there. And yes, you want to make sure that you're able to bring his confidence up, but we're at a point in the season right now where that we can't have that runway for him to figure this shit out. Vladar had one bad game in this past 15 starts.
Yeah, I think right now the Flames really have to figure out what they've got in Vladar. I think they know what they have in Wolf, and I think that Vladar's played less than 50 NHL games. Let's remember that, less than 50 NHL games. I think now, like Devin said, run Vladar, see what you got there. If you're running Vladar, what's the point in bringing Wolf up sit on your bench? To
Agreed.
Your tweeter, if he wants to see Wolf, I can tell him when the Wranglers play.
And like, it's rushing Wolf into a situation where he's potentially not going to be successful.
I agree.
That is your goalie of the future. So, even now, this team is this team right now. I don't. If anything, Brad Treliving needs to be trading for a depth defenseman. Our top six is set as far as I'm concerned, and outside of that, if they don't make it, they don't fucking make it.
I don't know that Wolf solves any problems this year or next year.
Exactly. Dustin Wolf is not being your savior, and putting that pressure on him could potentially hinder him and make him worse off within your system.
I guess what's the best you get out of Wolf? You get a couple wins. Okay. So we get a couple more wins out of Wolf. Maybe you get a couple losses because he's not ready. I think there's a lot more development to be had by having him go on a Calder Trophy run.
Calder
Absolutely.
Cup.
Calder Cup. That's right.
And
I always forget which one's which.
Trophy Cup. It's all
technically they
shit.
both look like cups. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Calder Cup, Calder Bowl.
And the way that this defense is kind of defending, it's not in Wolf's benefit to do that anyways. I don't know. Like there are multiple times today where I saw Hannafin go outside of he just wasn't defensive. And Anderson, he's not quite right yet since his accident that happened in Detroit. Your team that you have right now is the team you have right now. Period. End stop. I don't think they're good enough to, if they make the playoffs, to even contend to get past the first, maybe even second round.
The Calder Trophy does have a cup on it, just to be fair.
The question is, how deep is that cup there, Dan?
It doesn't matter. It's your first year in the league. It doesn't need to be deep. You want a deep cup, son? Win the cup.
Little half shot in there.
That's right. They're not even legal to drink at that age, anyways, if they win the Calder Trophy.
Well, in Canada they are. Yeah.
Sir.
So I think we're all on the same page with Wolf. Like, it'd be neat to see him, but I think, I don't know that what it gives the Flames.
It gives them false hope. It gives the fans false hope. Brad right now Brad Treliving is just waiting to see what the fuck this team is. We know what this team is. This team either rises to the occasion or fucking falls to the depths of, like, the Ottawas of the world. I'm not saying Ottawa's bad, but the Philadelphias of the world. It just doesn't. It's not there. This year is not there.
I compared them to last year's Winnipeg Jets. I also see a little bit of the bubble Montreal Canadiens.
That could go badly for the Flames.
But
that sounds terrible. That scares me as a fan.
But you know what? There's just the way the West is. They could go on a run and have people fooled.
But my thing is, every time somebody says that, they can't win 2 games in a row right now. What's to make us think they're going to string together 4 of 7?
Let alone the 1-goal games. What is it? What is it now? If we had
21,
Sorry, Sean, go for it.
21 games that they have lost by 1 goal this year.
And yeah, okay, we could be, the Flames could be. I say we all the time. We as a
We as the Sea of
Calgarian-
Red.
Yes, it could be that could be us at the top of the Western Conference standings. Sure, that's not the case. And
No.
isn't this rendition of the Flames supposed to be better at 1-goal games? Daryl Sutter looking at you, bringing the best out of
Well,
your players.
I'll say one thing, just in terms of luck. Tyler Toffoli should have 35 goals this year. Like, honestly, I think Tyler Toffoli has been overall, and the grade is very low here when I say this, Tyler Toffoli's the Flames' second best forward this year.
Kev, who's the first?
Michael Backlund.
That's right. Yes.
And you trade him.
Yeah, someone suggested on Twitter that this is the time to trade Michael Backlund. I'm like, no, actually.
And
No.
even listening to Steinberg on the oh god,
Good old Barb.
even looking at or listening to Steinberg on the overtime show, there's a bunch of callers saying trade Backlund. Well, like, okay, if you are in sell mode, fucking sell. You sell Hannafin, you sell Backlund, you sell Markstrom, for fuck's sakes. For I
No one's
don't,
taking Markstrom.
but
No one's taking Backlund.
that's my
Well,
point.
I
is
mean,
that-
we know what it costs to get 25% salary retained now, so I'm sure you could find someone to do it.
You got to pick a lane. You cannot be stagnant. And I don't. And as of right now, yes, they could be in it. They could go on a run, Kev, like you were talking about. These are big what ifs.
They could
What
also
is-
have a new arena just dropped in the city tomorrow. Like, there's a lot of what ifs.
But I think this
Will it
like,
be on the West End or will it be at the on the Stampede grounds?
You'll
I
just have to
hope
wake
it's
up
on-
and find out. We
I
can make
hope
it
it's
out
on
of
the
all the
West
snow
End.
we're getting. It'll just be our snow fort where they'll play.
like okay, maybe this is I'm just wondering, I know there's Groundhog Day. Do you guys have arena when arena day is? Is that the same thing where the groundhog comes up and says, not this year?
No,
Is
we
that-
had that. What was it, last year or the year before? And just like the Quebec groundhog, it died.
If we don't see Theo
Too soon.
pop his head out and give us anti-COVID comments, we know it's 6 more years of no arena.
But then what about the cleanup of the West End? When's that going to happen?
We got a lot of people looking for work right now.
The fact that we went down this rabbit hole really solidifies
All right, I'll
where
pull
the
us
fucking
back.
Flames are right now.
Right now,
Honestly.
I think for the Flames, they've got to ride out what they are. I don't think you can buy your way out of this at the deadline. It's not time to sell. I think the Flames have to say, what we are this year. If we're good enough, we're good enough. If we're not, geez, we learned some lessons and let's do something in the offseason and try it again. But I think trying to buy your way out of this right now is going to be the worst thing they can do. I think if
Agreed.
we look after this deadline and we have no Coronado or no Zari or no Peltier or no first, I really think we're going to want that damn first this offseason because we're going to go, crap, we're not as good as we thought we were. We got to start getting some young players in the system.
Yeah.
And you really got to look into we are right in the middle of it all. Okay, and we got to look to the future. We have, like you said, we have Zari, we have hopefully Coronado signs. We have Pelche. Outside of that, though, this is the year, or no, we have a timeline here. We got at least 2 more years after this to really push. And right now, they aren't showing that they are good enough to push to make those trades for the deadline.
2 more years, Dev?
I'd say 2 more years. Yeah, I would.
I think they've got 1 more year after this.
Listen, Sean. As far as like on ice product goes,
We've
sure.
had this debate. I'm going to go get a drink while you guys have it again.
but look at this ownership. This ownership wants to make the playoffs. It's one of those ones where you just you have everybody in place right now. Yeah, okay. who's coming up on the books? You have Backlund, you have Lindholm,
Backlund, Lindholm, Toffoli, Dubé,
Hannafin,
Tanev, Zadorov, Ruzicka.
Totally. And who says we can't do the Flames cannot do more outside of the next 2 years?
I'm just saying with the current group, if you want to see what this group does, say like after next year, and like tinker around and figure out what went wrong this year. With this current group, you've got one more year after this. After that, you're looking at pretty big roster changes, and you're looking at a team that's just gone through pretty big roster changes. And I don't see that the year after that being anything more than what this one is.
My only pushback within that, though, is that you have Kadri and you have Huberdeau for more than just that. And that's the reason why you brought them in, is to have that window and to make sure that it could be a fucking retool within the next after next year. And
the Flames will be refucked again.
Coming from a Canucks fan, man, that's got to sting.
This is what Daryl thinks of the Canucks right now.
Yeah, that's what I think of the Canucks right now too.
For those of you who are on just podcast, there's a deadpan Daryl. So
which is pretty much Daryl on any given Thursday.
A resting Daryl face.
Resting Daryl face. I like that.
Yeah, and I was saying, Devin, we'll get your. Maybe the best thing that could happen to this organization is a Wrangler long playoff run, just to allow this organization to develop their prospects and their kids enough to go into a situation where they have long playoff success that can build something. Like a Dustin Wolf long playoff run, I think helps the Flames immensely.
Wolf, Peltier, Zari.
When do you bring down? When do you put down Peltier?
When they're out.
Yeah,
but like Dan was saying, that could be until beginning of April.
Yeah, that's when the playoffs start, though.
That's okay. Fine. I think you leave Peltier here until you're out, and then send him down for the playoffs. Or when the Flames are out, if they make the playoffs, send him down after that. They're still winning in the AHL without him.
Can we send Markstrom through the waiver wires so he can go back up?
I believe his no move also includes no waivers.
As in he can't go down, or as in like he can't be put on?
He can't be put on waivers because he doesn't want to report to an American Hockey League team.
Good to know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
When he signed that deal, he didn't think the AHL team would be down the hall. He thought he'd have to go to Stockton, California.
Yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't be surprised when we go to the off-season press conferences that it'll be revealed that Markstrom has played with a pretty significant injury.
Sure, but in that case, stop playing him then. Like, put Vladar in.
Yeah, you really have to hope so.
I'm not going to blame him.
Call Dustin Wolf up.
No.
Bring up Oscar. Can we give some love to Oscar Dansk, gentlemen? Bring Oscar Dansk up.
You can dance if you want to. You don't dance behind. If your friends don't dance, then they don't. I don't. It's sorry.
You can dance if you want to, as long as you're on the edge of the bench.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
What about Daniel Chechelev?
Man, the Flames have been through this goaltending prospect pool a few times where we had a whole bunch of hope, and Obi-Wan never came. So,
and if we look at the best teams out there, they're not ones that rush their goalies or their players. I mean, it's fun for teams to see their first overall pick play in the NHL. Let's be honest, 90% of those, the team's picking top 10 because they need someone to sell you a ticket, right? Yeah. And I think that we have the luxury right now of keeping guys in the American League. Let's not rush them. I still think that one of the reasons Sam Bennett didn't turn out is need more American Hockey League seasoning. Let's use the American League team, especially being in Calgary. We brought it here for a reason. Let's use it. If you want to see these guys, go buy a Wranglers ticket.
But next year, and one thing that Sean said in our chat, and I do agree with him, the goaltending question next year is very fascinating. And I think it's going to be fascinating what happens in the playoffs, because a bunch of teams are going to be using two goaltenders. I think there's very few teams that are going to be using one. Tampa, Rangers, and I think that might, and Winnipeg, that might be it. And Dallas, there may be 4 teams that use one
And I think
goalie.
this might be the last year he'll get away with that.
What, using one throughout in the
Yeah.
playoffs? No, I think you start with who you think is going to be your number one, and then if they struggle, then yeah, you do that. But you still have the plan to use one goalie.
And to the point of that, yeah, it's going to be interesting next year of what's going to happen with goaltending. No, it's not.
Goaltending is going to be the exact same next year. It's going to be.
I don't know.
I don't know if they're going to play the same games, but the 2 goalies on opening day are going to be Vladar Markstrom.
Kevin, I'll throw something out there. I wonder if there's a consider of a buyout of Markstrom.
Sean, what does that look like? Please, let's go down this road.
This is a team that's trying to shed money next year, not take on more money.
It doesn't, Kev. I love the idea and making sure that, okay, let's go down these roads to make sure that this is the best possible option. As of next year goes, it's not the case.
So Kevin, so we buy out Markstrom. So then you're saying we would have a Vladar Wolf pair?
I think you might. I think you might have to.
I think you need to have a veteran. I think Wolf is doing this better this year because he has a veteran behind him. I don't know that either of those guys helps push the other. I think you keep Markstrom for at least another year, let him try to rebound, and if not, he becomes a very expensive bench warming piece.
It's
Sean,
interesting. This buyout's interesting because they will save 6.3 on the cap next season, which gives them a little bit of money. And then once everyone comes off the books for the 2 years after that, they only save 1.83.
And that's the year that the cap's expected to go up from about 5.
Yeah. And then after that, they'll have 3 years of dead cap at 1.6.
0.6 isn't bad.
It's not bad. It just doesn't.
I
don't think it happens because I don't think Daryl would be happy with a Vladar Wolf pairing. I think if there's a move in the offseason with the goaltending, it's going to be Vladar.
The one thing that a reason I'm bringing it up is because I am starting to wonder if this league is going to be paying goaltenders $5 million a year. In Edmonton, you've got Jack Campbell getting $5 million, and I think he's pretty damn close to being the backup in Edmonton as now. Like, I think that they are having buyer's remorse right now. I think it's going to be really, really hard for goaltenders to get paid. And it's almost, if you're in a cap crunch, the spot that you might be able to get away with it is goaltending. That's kind of where I'm starting to wonder a little bit. It's like, you look what Toronto.
I don't think you cut bait on Markstrom after one bad year. When he was Vezina quality last year, you don't say, well, he had one bad year, let's release him. I think you got to give him at least one more year to try and bounce back. If this time last year he still looks like he does this year, then maybe you look at that. But I think it's going to be hard to attract free agents. If, well, you had one bad year, son, out you go.
And the other thing is, Kev, you've used the Winnipeg Jets as the comparison for the Flames here. Last year's Winnipeg Jets. Look at Hellebuck this year.
Yeah,
you just put in a very paltry 50 save performance tonight.
It doesn't make sense, and I don't think that the management or even the ownership would go down that route. Maybe if if we were here a year later, then that might be an option.
I think if we're running the same challenge this time next year, it's a worthwhile conversation to have.
Okay, fair. But I know I'm weird. Anyway.
And I think there's definitely an off-season discussion around goaltender utilization, and maybe you go into training camp saying, you know what, one of you two is going to have to earn the net. But I agree with Devin. Come opening day next year, Vladar and Markstrom are your two.
I think next year
we're talking about Dustin Wolf, who's done he's going to have 2 full seasons in the AHL with plus 920 save percentages, and they're going to say, no, you're not good enough.
It's not about no, you're not good enough. Just what have we talked about on this podcast for fucking years now?
Sean, I think you're doing him a favor. You don't say, well, kid, you're good. Go sit on the bench. If you can't give him the starting job, keep him in the A where he can.
Exactly. Start. Yes. You want him keeping getting reps. What was your version or like outlook on Demko when he was just sitting there, or DiPietro when he was just sitting there the past 3 years? He needs to be playing.
Oh yeah, I agree, but I'm not saying that they're going to do that. Like they'll have him up as like if he's the backup, that's fine as long as he's getting a decent amount of starts. There's nothing wrong with that.
But you already have 2 goaltenders that are NHL quality.
Is Dustin Wolf going to be happy making AHL money?
It doesn't matter whether or not he's under contract for the next 2 years.
He's still under contract next year. Wherever he plays, he'll probably get the same. I don't think it's a two-way.
So I don't think he doesn't have any
he's on an
leverage
ELC.
within that.
He'll get paid AHL money.
So you know what
And then he'll say, "Look, I want out because I want to play in the NHL."
Yeah, maybe. Or you say after that, you know what? Give us one more year to figure things out.
He's fucking 21 years old this year, man. Well, what does he have to push for that to be a thing?
Sean, and even if he says he wants out, he's not a UFA. He's an RFA.
No, I understand that, but if his camp comes to the Flames and says, "We want NHL games. If not, we want to be traded."
Sure,
yes,
then
they
if
don't
I'm the
have,
Flames,
they
I'll say,
don't, they
great.
don't have to trade him.
No,
but
great,
then
earn a job.
that diminishes the asset a little bit.
Great, you want NHL games to be better than Vladar.
And
if I'm Dustin Wolf and his representative, then say, "Give me the fucking chance."
Sure, let's play in some preseason games and let's see if you're better than Vladar.
But the whole thing is like longevity. Look at how long your career is going to be within the Calgary Flames.
I think he realizes that
that's so short term.
Yeah, I think he realizes that he's going to want to be properly seasoned to stick around for a while. We've seen a lot of goalies rush to the NHL. They get a good 3-4 years, and then they're done.
I'm just saying it is. I think you guys have shut. I think Devin specifically has shut this down, but I still think there's there. We've seen it happen at before with goaltenders of this caliber where they've come in and been dominant at the AHL level, and they go, "Okay, we want to play. Either trade us or move your goaltender to open up a spot so I can do that."
Who?
Demko was one.
And
was it?
And like I don't mean to just cut you off, but it doesn't seem like it's very. If you were going to be saying that, the whole NHL is going to be watching, and yes, they're going to be wanting to have you, but at the same time, if I was going to be acquiring Dustin Wolf and he's going to be demanding these things, you have to be very cautious of how to go about your situation here. I don't see him going down this road. I don't see him demanding this. He's 21 years old. When do normally prospect goalies come into fruition other than Carey Price and Marc-Andre Fleury to be as good as they are right off the bat?
And I think if you are Dustin Wolf's agent, you're saying you need an NHL job. So let's say there's a handful of teams that are looking for an NHL goalie. Is that really the market you'd want to be going to?
Look at Carter Hart. I think he was pushed in too soon.
I agree.
Yeah, there was Cal Peterson too. He was pushed.
Yep.
And I'm not saying those are. I agree with you on those two as well, but it's just I'm just saying I think it's not. I don't think it's as cut and dry that it's just going to be the same goaltending setup to start next season.
What I will say is this, though, ultimately in the big picture, in a longer this is probably a longer, deeper conversation in a future Flames podcast. The way training camp went last year, I do think was an issue, and dividing the veterans and the rookies. And I think next year there has to be more competition between the two, because I think that was one of the themes that came out this year is we got a lot of comfortable players that ended up, and there was no competition. And that has to change next year for sure.
I want to see more Walker Dewar.
Yeah,
I'm tired of that fucking fourth line. I'm sorry. I appreciate what Lewis brings. I appreciate what Lucic brings. I I would love to see more Walker Dewar. Put Ruzicka on there, and I don't know, put Zadorno on here. Like it just does. The way that Daryl Sutter conducts himself isn't cohesive to bringing in young talent until they quote unquote prove themselves. And Walker Dewar, I feel like has Zadorno, who is a big body, which is exactly what Daryl Sutter loves and wants, has. The one thing that Daryl Sutter has a hard time doing is getting away from his veterans who he potentially has promised to be within this lineup and to do well, right? He called Lewis even before the free agency happened. We heard about this and wanted him on the team. Sure, that's great. But there are better players who are hungrier, who have more talent than a Lewis that are able and ready within this organization to be part of that fourth line.
You missed this, Dev. I don't think the fourth line's the issue, though.
Well, no fucking shit. Yes, absolutely it is. Yes. Right when I came on, though, I talked about this top six is already set. It's already done. I don't see them doing any sort of trading. And if Brad Treliving does do that trade for a top six scorer, if you will,
James,
No. It doesn't make sense for this organization to do it at this time because of all the reasons that we just have talked about for the past 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've covered the Flames well. If you have
There's
any
a horse
questions.
that's dead, and we've beat it for the past 30 minutes. So,
Yeah.
And his name's Blasty.
Yeah,
I was
Blasty's
about to
dead.
say, that's what we should be doing with the Blasty jerseys, just beating them till they're dead.
But there was a big, massive trade on Friday night involving the Toronto Maple Leafs. They acquired Ryan O'Reilly. They acquired Noel Acciari. They gave up draft picks to the St. Louis Blues. They gave up draft picks to the Minnesota Wild to take because the Minnesota Wild are paying part of Ryan O'Reilly's salary in probably one of the more unique trades of the year. First of all, can we talk about, because some people are where are we on what Minnesota did? Do you think that they got enough for what they did? They got a fourth rounder.
Where are they? Fourth rounder, and they're not actually close to the cap, so at least this season, so it's not a big deal for them to take on.
They got something out of it.
I would have expected that they would, based on what we've seen for teams that were acting as a broker in the past. I was surprised they're so cheap. And I think Minnesota probably could have named their own price there.
Maybe they did. Bill
Maybe.
Guerin, he hasn't really made his stamp on this team yet, right?
I think he has.
With who?
He bought out both Parise and Ryan Suter.
You can call that a stamp, but I don't think that that's the things that he wanted to do. That's things that he had to do.
Well, that's still a massive stamp, and it's
my whole point is, like, what does he want to do with this team, right?
getting younger.
Exactly. So anyways,
I would have
besides
expected
the point,
the Minnesota probably would have taken on a prospect, either AHL or a non-contracted prospect at the least to go with the pick. That was my thought when I read it.
Matthew Nyes? Oh wait, no, sorry, no. I say that tongue in cheek. I listen. I it's only 1.875 for this entire year. It's not a bad thing. You get a pick within the top 4 rounds, and maybe he sticks, maybe he doesn't. Either way, you should, if you trust your scouts, that'll be a AHLer
Or its
right?
currency.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I think it's going to be. I don't think they end up making that pick. I think they end up using that pick maybe next season To
And I think
bolster this
they
roster.
wanted 2024 for that reason. I think if you wanted to make the pick, you would have got 2023 out of it.
It was 2025.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so yeah, then that's even more reason that it's currency.
Totally. For the Leafs, though, I'm thrilled about this. This is a better version of the Nick Foligno of 2 years ago, and it just solidifies that there's a shutdown center within this lineup that is able to bring leadership. You have him for a year. You bring in Noel Acciari as well, who's a grinder, and you know what? There's been a lot of bullshit out there that they didn't want to bring in, or they didn't want to give up a first round pick for rental. And how could you not?
I don't think anybody does.
No, you don't. And you know what? It's lip service. It's bullshit. When you have that type of deal on the table, I think you take it a good 9 times out of 10, especially when you're in the position of the Maple Leafs.
And maybe third time's the charm for acquiring a former captain. Foligno 2 years ago, Giordano last year.
Well, and you just got to hope that he stays healthy. That's the only thing, right? Because that's what happened to Foligno. Foligno got hurt. And Giordano, he's got a lot of miles on there for the way that he plays. I guess you could say the same for Foligno, but as far as O'Reilly goes, it gives me a little bit of hope. Not a lot, because they still got to get out of the first round, but it gives me a little bit of hope for being a Leafs fan.
Dan?
Oh, normally that's me.
What I was, I guess, well, I think the Leafs will have to address if they can address that blue line. I still don't know if it's, I don't know. I still would pick Tampa to beat Toronto in a 7-game series. And maybe it's just my cynicism. Maybe it's because I've seen Tampa do this all too often. And maybe I've seen Toronto do this all too often. But I still go lineup to lineup, and I still pick Tampa. Am I out to lunch?
I mean, Vasilevsky versus Samsonov or Murray, you're taking Vasilevsky. That blue line, Justin Holl, I'm sure that's keeping him on the top pair with Riley. I'm sure that'll go over well, but
I know John Viveros will be very happy about that hot take hockey. I think that'll be one of his happier things in the playoffs. I can't wait for those tweets.
Yeah, I just don't think that blue line's good enough yet. Maybe they can make another move here. I don't know if they've got any more. Like maybe they'd actually do trade Matthew Nyes for a player, but a defenseman. But I don't see that blue line being good enough.
There's got to be money going out if they're going to bring in somebody in. And
Justin Holl.
Well, okay, so you're going to be paying Justin Holl is only $2 million. What are you getting?
And then you'd have to find another broker somewhere.
Yeah, it just doesn't make too much sense. And I agree with you. On paper, Tampa is better. It's just throughout the entire lineup, the amount of depth that they have. I was talking about what's that guy's name? He was from Ottawa. Nick Paul. I was really hoping Calgary would go for a Nick Paul last year. Didn't happen. I love the way that he plays. He's a great third liner. He's a tweener between the third and the second liner, and those are the type of players that you win with. They really are. So it just through and through, Tampa's better, but that's why we love watching these games, is because there can be upsets. And Vasilevsky isn't as untouchable as he has been in the past. He's still an amazing goalie, but he's not as definitive a W 1 out of 2 games or 2 out of 2 games that you would expect him to be. So that's what I'm hoping for. Samsonov is having a great year, a great bounce back year. I think you run with him, and sorry, Matt Murray, you're you're just too accident prone, and the ups and downs of what you bring is just, it's not enough for a playoff run. And yeah, you just got to hope that that top six is going to be able to outscore Tampa's top six, which sounds absolutely asinine. But I may be a Leafs fan, but I'm not a naive Leafs fan. Sorry.
Yeah, the way I look at it, another player that could go out the door, especially with the addition of O'Reilly, their dev, is Alex Kerfoot.
They've been talking about that for years, though. Like, fuck, it's been 2 years, maybe 2.5 years of this shit, and who's going to take on? Who's going to do that? And it's going to be too much money for them for the Leafs to do that. And you're all in, but are you that all in that you'll have to pay somebody more to take Alex Kerfoot's contract?
He's a UFA at the end of this season, so it's not that.
Yeah, it's just it's currency. It's 3.5 in consideration to $2 million of Justin Hall.
Well, I think both. I think if they make the deal, Dev, I think it's both. Both go out the door.
It's both, but then it's going to be a first plus, depending on who you go to, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, of the first round pick of 2035 has now been traded for the Toronto.
You only trade 5 years in a row, or 5 years from where you are. I apologize for crapping on you guys. My house power went out.
Oh no!
What section of the city are you in?
I'm in the southeast, sort of by Chinook Center.
Oof,
Jesus! But you have a light on there, which makes me wonder.
It flickered off and then it came right back on, but it's taking the computer some time to boot back up.
Yeah. Okay, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is like for the. I totally get why they did it. I think it's one of those swing for the fences trades that everybody keeps talking about. And I guess you don't know what happens with Kyle Dubas next and you don't know like the Leafs have to get past the first round. That's a must in Toronto, at the very least. And
if they don't, do you think Dubas might be in jeopardy with being their GM next year?
I would not get rid of Dubas, but the ownership may think differently.
It's funny because you say that, but I feel like he's been in jeopardy for the past 2 years. It's very similar to Brad Treliving. They people question that all the time.
The issue with Dubas, though, and it's the same as Treliving. They don't have a contract after this year.
They don't.
So
there you go. Maybe those two just swap. Dubas comes to Calgary and Tree goes to Toronto.
That'd be actually very fucking interesting. As similar as both these teams are, they're so different. And the way that Treliving does his business in comparison to Dubas, I would love to see it.
If Tree doesn't come back to Calgary, as much as I want him to be back, he'll be fine. He's a well-regarded guy. He will find a job in the NHL.
Yeah, just with that in mind, that's why I think we will see another big swing for the fences move from the Leafs, and it'll be on the blue line.
They need a shutdown defenseman. They don't need another high-flying defenseman. That's going to be a Chikrin or a Klingberg, Gurianov, not Gurianov. Who's that defenseman from
Gavrikov,
which would be fantastic. And then I guess a poor man's Gavrikov would be a Connor Murphy, essentially. One of those two, I think, would be ideal.
Yeah. I mean, the Bruins seem to be in on one of those guys. It'll be interesting to see what the Bruins do too. I mean, they're going to load up because they're in their they're going for the Bergeron last run here. So that will be interesting. I don't know where, like, there's Chikrin, there's Gavrikov.
Jake McCabe's out there as well. The thing with Connor Murphy, he has 3 years after this year at 4.4. Jake McCabe has $4 million at 2 more years. You kind of just go down the list of, okay, who's out of it, and those are the ones that have been mostly.
There's a big money D-man in San Jose. Does anybody think he's going to move?
No.
Nope.
According to Frank Saravelli, it feels like this is the breaking point of that deal. And if you are San Jose, you want to make that move now, because I don't think he has much more value after this year.
No, I agree.
Well, I just don't. Yeah, I don't see. Is San Jose willing to eat enough cap to make that work?
Well, if it costs a fourth to acquire 25%, could you just pay, a couple teams fourths and absorb like 60% of that deal?
I just don't. I think you look. But the problem with that, though, Dan, is that's a fourth for 1 year.
It's true. I think everybody knows that's a bad deal, and no one's going to want it.
Yeah.
San Jose would have to be willing to eat at least. I think the maximum you can eat is 50%, and only do they want to eat that 50%.
No, to make that deal work, I think they'd have to eat 40 to 50%, and then have another team eat another 10 to 15 just to make it work. And that's long term. And that's long term, yeah.
I have to laugh at that. Like, who the fuck's doing that?
Exactly.
It's got to be out of if you're eating that extra percentage, it's got to be out of conference, and it's got to be one of those ones that's like, okay, well, this is going to give us, I don't know, a first or second round.
The Coyotes are good at
that. Man, they've been good for years.
I mean, they've already maxed out Mullet Arena. It's not like they can get more fans to come in there because they're a good team.
But just wait till Bedard is a part of that, because you got to think that Behrman's just sprinkling a little bit of magic on top of that lottery ball.
We can have that discussion another day. I think that even if Chicago won, I think that the NHL will not let Bedard go to Chicago right now.
Absolutely not. No, not with everything that's happened. We don't have to go down that road.
What about John Klingberg?
Bedard just needs to stay home. That's all he needs to do.
What about John Klingberg?
He's not necessarily your stereotypical shutdown guy.
Oh yeah,
no, he's not. And if you already have one of those type of players, you just look at San Jose. You did have Brett Burns, and he had Erik Karlsson. How well did that work out for 2.5, 3 years? It didn't. And you can only really have one of those. And if you're looking at Edmonton Oilers, who's going to be wanting to bring in a defenseman, okay, Chychrun, or you have Erik Karlsson, Karlsson, or even who were we just talking about?
Klingberg,
thank you. It just doesn't make any sense.
I could see Kulikov being an option.
Yep. He's sort of turned into that. He was a little more two-way, but he's definitely turned into that.
Yeah. Why is no one asking about Marc-Edouard Vlasic?
How about Marc-Edouard Vlasic there? Now someone's asking.
Have we looked at that contract again?
4 years, $7 million. He's a UFA in 27, so it's not 11 for Karlsson.
I don't know that anyone wants to take on that kind of money right now.
And
who the fuck is he?
He's not the same guy.
Exactly.
No.
Like, he is. How old is he?
He's 35.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's why.
He signed that at the end of his peak. Maybe a year too late kind of a contract.
And I would say Vlasic has seen a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's the kind of guy you might see retire at the end of the year. Even if it's strongly encouraged by the team.
they'll find something that was wrong with him, and he will be Robot Island.
There you go.
I don't know. I
Deb,
there's
you're
always
muted.
Marion Hossa, his equipment is itching his skin.
Yes,
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you wash it there, Marion?
Or wash your skin. Take a shower.
That's true too. Don't be such a goddamn dirt squirrel.
yeah, Marion.
You Hall of Famer? Fuck.
I guess the only one other thing I wanted to ask or talk about here, Matt, is just shortly after the Islanders acquire Bo Horvat, sign Bo Horvat to 8 years in hopes of going on some sort of playoff run. Lo and behold, Matthew Barzal is out long term. And now the Islanders, some are suggesting should just go into sell mode. I don't see Lou doing that, by the way. But tough times for the Islanders.
The latest I saw, he's out week to week. So it's not like he's out for the season.
I think that's a PR move.
Yeah, I agree with Devin.
It's more so being like, okay, he's out week to week. He will be back. Let's try.
I think especially before the deadline, you don't want to tip your hand that you're without your star.
Totally.
And the other thing is and then if they do want to sell, what do they have to sell?
Well, that's the other question.
Anders Lee, Palmer, man, I don't know.
I don't think they could be deadline sellers. I think they might be able to find buyers in the off season if they want to do that. But I don't know that there's a lot of deadline value.
But at that point, say they actually, yeah, they'll. But no, at that point, if they miss the playoffs and they want to retool and sell off, guess who's got their 2024 unprotected first round pick? If that's the case, Vancouver.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't see them doing that either.
Well, according to Jeff Merrick, they are looking at JT Miller.
That'd be so funny.
Well, and I was about to say, I think knowing what we know about Lou, I would imagine that if he thinks he's without his top star, he may try to buy his way out of this mess this year. I think he might give away more assets than he should to try and buy his way out of this.
Well, and like how many years does he have?
Oh, we lost Evan too.
Rolling power outages.
Maybe.
Devin and I both had to feed the meter.
No, it's working its way west. I might be next.
John, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Well, the Islanders beat the Penguins today 4-2. So they're not out of it.
No, they aren't out of it. I don't. The whole thing about Barzal being like the linchpin on that team, I think, is a bit oversold.
I think they can still go on a decent run in their division without Barzal. I think it definitely hurts them, but I think that they will make one or two acquisitions to try and shore that up.
They're in the playoff. They're in a playoff spot. Why are they selling? They're like in the first wild card spot. Like
they got 65 points. They are they're pretty much locked into a wild card spot or out.
But I think Lou is far enough into this that he doesn't. I think it's sort of like the Flames in a lot of ways. He's so far into this that he doesn't want to, say he's out and start selling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of comparisons between the Islanders and the Flames and where they're at and what they'll do.
Yeah, except they allow mustaches in beards in Calgary and not on the island. That's the one difference.
That's right. No mustachioed man there tells you to go to the car dealership and tell him Lanny sent you.
Yeah. Okay, well, since the power is rolling out in Calgary, we probably should wrap this up. Here. So we will be back soon. We'll have to figure out the schedule here again because, We're all over the place. But Dan, did you record a podcast this week?
We did. We recorded one yesterday, fresh out of the oven. We talked about a lot of the same things, a lot of the Allan Walsh talk, a lot of what that means for the team, and if it's really just a smokescreen or not. So you can find us as always at firesidechat.ca or on Twitter at Fireside Podcast. We are facebook.com/firesidechat. We're also on Mastodon, YouTube, and anywhere that fine podcasts are found. But definitely take a listen to our show as well if you want some more Flames news. We go live we record live every Sunday, and the show's out on Mondays every week during the season talking about the Flames. And we expect next week, with just days before the trade deadline, it should be a good show.
Yes. Sean?
You can follow me on Twitter at BeardyCanuck03.
Devin, check out Amped Advantage, by the way, in Calgary for your gym physical ability needs at Amped Advantage. You can follow him, GordHowe09. Tyler, you can follow him at TNOBLE. He was dealing with snow in northern BC, and Chris was busy as well, SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.